Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Institute for Personal Development, Kriya Yoga Ashram, where total consciousness is the new frontier.
Kriya Yoga is union of the individual with the divine. Join us as we explore the practices to initiate this process.
Good morning. Welcome to the Voice of Yoga. Let's talk consciousness. I am your hostess, Lisa Winton, and with me is Kenny Toy, also known as Swami Jayananda, founder of the Institute for Personal Development, located here in Hampton, New Hampshire. Good morning, Swami. Thank you for being here today. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing pretty good today. How about you?
Well, I'm doing great today, too. Thanks for asking. And we'd like to thank you all for tuning in. Today on the Voice of Yoga, we will talk about the difference between watching and watching out as the graduation from being double-minded to single-eyed. Listen as we continue to install the mental staircase lifting consciousness from sense to soul. In this show, we will explore the statement made by Herb Fitch in Jolla Series, Class 12A, Heaven is Earth without the mask of sense. Welcome to the Voice of Yoga. We are talking consciousness. Join the Kriya Yoga Spiritual Advance to get the light in your soul and experience true senseless optimism. So I see the title of today's show is Life Beyond Sense Level Optimism. I think we have a couple of things here we should talk about. First of all, what do we mean by life? And what does sense level optimism mean to you?
Yeah, I really like the idea life is hid with Christ in God. We're no longer accepting this mental material world of energy is what Scripture refers to as life. Life is spiritual, eternal, changeless, perfect. And since the inception of Institute for Personal Development, we've always been saying we don't want to be senselessly optimistic. And since our integration with Christian Science and the teachings of Mary Baker Eddy, we have come to the realization senseless optimism is exactly what we want. We want to stop trusting the appearances, what is appearing in the corporeal senses, and we want to have a relationship with the invisible, intangible divine omnipresence. And so it's not just release and let God. It's more like know the truth that makes you free. In order for us to begin to demonstrate this divine principle, we must be conscious of it. And in order to be conscious of it, we must know the Christ. Christ is the saving aspect of truth. Christ is the Messiah. It is what will make the divine creation comprehensive to human consciousness. So it is a valuable and very important piece in this building of the mental staircase, lifting consciousness from sense to soul.
So in keeping with that, Swami, let's talk about any kind of astrological aspect that would help us do just that.
Yeah, well, last week's show was on January 6th, 2025, and there was quite a bit going on astrologically, which we will begin to weave into our shows because this week, January 13th, 2025, which is the full moon, has even more celestial events, and these can be used to help us rise above the limits of mortal sense. Big way that we do that is shifting identity from material to mental, eventually to spiritual.
So, Swami, why don't you give us the astrological forecast for this show?
Yeah, like I said, today is the full moon, 24 degrees Cancer, 0 minutes at 5:27 p.m. The full moon is the delivery day. What was ever promised at the time of the new moon is now in full visibility. But also today we have the Sun trine Uranus, which is a good time for new insights on self-expression. And that self is with a capital S. Moon trine Saturn, sextile Uranus, opposition Sun, conjunct Mars, and trine Neptune. Here we can look for new insights from imagination, which may bring conflict to form personal desire and collective purpose with self-expression. The other thing that we could note is the moon is void of course from 11 p.m. 46 minutes to midnight tonight. So productivity may slow down in the late evening. And that would about do it for our astrological events for today.
So, Swami, you have what's called the CPS from your website. I believe it means the Celestial Positioning System. So if anybody wanted to refresh what you just said and get the other astrological forecast for the day, they can get that from the site, correct?
Yeah, the CPS is available for members, either astrological members or VIP members or Samadhi seekers. These are memberships that you can purchase on the website, and this information is available to them.
So after giving us this forecast, is there anything in particular that we should be working on or noticing, or how do we take that information and apply it to our day?
I think I should preface my answer here. In this model, we have come to the realization what is appearing in the corporeal senses isn't real. So even say, for example, all of these astrological events are not real. They are the outpicturings of the world mind. But what we're also learning is we can use what's visible and tangible, these astrological events, to help us understand what is invisible and intangible, spirit. The reason we are doing this is so we can graduate from belief to faith to understanding. At the level of belief, everything is equal. We believe we're mortal. We believe in sickness. We believe in death. We believe in suffering. We believe in miracles. Everything at this level of belief is a hypnotic state, primarily because it is driven by a belief in two powers. When we graduate to spiritual identity, we are under the government of one power. There is no longer this polar opposition constantly pushing and pulling identity. Spirit is absolute, it's whole, it's complete. There is no division in spirit. Now, in the beginning of acquiring spiritual knowledge, we start with what they called in Christian Science, the milk. The milk is very different from the meat of Christian Science. At the level of the milk, we believe God is a power helping us at this human level, and we can call upon it for assistance, and it will give us protection and prosperity and all of these things. As we start to graduate from the milk to the meat, we have to come to the realization there is no mortal sense of life. Spirit is all. And in the light of spiritual truth, it dissolves the belief in these two powers, in this separate sense of self. And we begin to do this by building a mental landscape that will support the divine idea. So we can use these astrological events. You can use the planets, the signs of the zodiac. Like we have said in other shows, they're a wonderful, tangible symbol to represent the perfection of the divine mind. When we are starting out, we want to have that sense of hope. God is running a perfect universe. If we stay at sense level awareness and we listen to the news and we're getting all of these changing conditions at a personal level, And a lot of them are a mix of good and bad. Whereas at this astral level, where the planets are, astrology, there really isn't anything in opposition. So we know the full moon will be at 5:27 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's not going to be late. It gives us this sense of confidence. The invisible, intangible, divine, spiritual principle is doing a wonderful job in running a universe. This will give us the ability to what we start out to do, which is allay the fear, coming out of the belief in death, basically, mortality.
Let's explore that statement from our opening by Herb Fitch from the Jolla Series, Class 12A. I'll read it. Heaven is earth without the mask of sense. End of that quote. Would you like to dig deep on that for us?
Yeah, he is talking about the line in the Lord's Prayer, on earth as it is in heaven. Here's what he wrote. You notice that on earth as in heaven, don't divide them. Heaven is earth without the mask of the senses. They're one and the same. Don't be fooled by material sense. Don't reach out for the mirage of matter that is never there. Lay up your treasures in heaven, meaning in spiritual knowledge, in spiritual recognition, that the all-pervading Spirit of God has no material opposite. Stop serving two masters, matter and spirit. End of quote. Now, to expand on this, we have a soundbite that Herb Fitch did in Realization of Oneness, Class 29A. And if anybody is interested in the full audio file or the complete program, you can get this at mysticalprinciples.com, and I'll play it.
For spirit is God, and spirit is omnipresent, and spirit is invisible, and I am spirit. Now you must have your 7 points as your foundation in order to be able to come higher to the invisible nature of your being, so that all evil presenting itself to you is now presenting itself to the invisible self. The invisible self who can say, only spirit is here. Only the Spirit of God is here, and it is I. Only the Spirit of God is there, and it is I. Now the world has tried to overcome the evils of the world. For instance, you might take any prominent person in religious work, and if you asked him one question, you would discover quickly where he stands in truth. You might say, for example, to a clergyman, please tell me why God permits 1 million people each year to die of cancer. Please tell me why God permitted 6 million Hebrews to be burned in German ovens. Please tell me why God permitted nations to go to war against each other. Tell me why. And I can assure you the answer you got would be a very stock answer, something like, well, let's see. In the first place, we must be humble. We must trust God. We must trust His infinite wisdom to know what is right for us. That might be one stock answer. Another might be, well, punishment. The world has to be punished for its sins. Another might be that we've given our souls to the devil. And you can go down the list of the vague answers that would be given. Provided the individual you asked even deigned to give you an answer, they might look at you with a paternal glance and think, how naive a question. Why did God permit this, that, and the other atrocity? But I want to tell you this, that any answer of that nature is really a statement that the individual giving you that answer does not believe in the presence of God. There's only one answer that's true. The answer that is true is that God does not permit nations to go to war. God does not permit 1 million persons to die of cancer every year. God does not permit genocide. God does not permit manslaughter. God does not permit the evils of the world. And therefore, and this is the answer that you will never get from all the religions of the world, therefore, these things cannot be happening. Now, if you think they're happening, you also think that God is impotent, or that God is indifferent, or that God is cruel. If they are happening, you are saying God is not God. If they are happening, if one single child in this entire world dies of cancer, we have said that we are atheists. And it doesn't matter how many clergymen in the world think that these things are happening, they are practicing atheism. Atheism is the belief that God is not present. You can believe in a God in the sky, but you've got to believe in a God on earth too. If you don't have a God on earth, you don't have a God. You've got chaos. Now, most of us have been practicing the presence of God sufficiently to know that God is present, not as an abstract idea, but as a living force, maintaining a perfect universe wherever there is a witness, an individual, a consciousness that can abide in the secret place of the Most High. Any clergyman can prove it. When they can abide in the presence of God as a fact, not a word, then all that is unlike the presence of God cannot be here. Its very existence would be a denial of the presence, or else it would be a statement that, it being here, God is permitting evil to be here. And so these 7 points are going to be the fulcrum from which we function in preparation for the higher message, the liberating message. In a way, you might say that as you learn to practice only the presence, and to see that all temptation is the material action of the world, all of it, the good material action and the bad material action, is the temptation to deny the presence of God. And when you are able to give yourself to this work, not on a part-time basis, because you think that you've got 8 hours of work to do at an office, but to make it your constant companion, no matter what you do and where you do it, never being asleep to the presence of God, then you will find that you are really the forerunner of a new age, what is called the remnant, the enlightened remnant, the seed of a new age. Those who will stand in the conscious knowledge that here, right in my office, right in my home, right on the freeway, right in the ghetto, right on the battlefield, the presence of God is all that is present. The power of God is all that is present. There is no power of evil. There is no evil to be here. That which is presented to me as evil or error or accident or lack is the hallucination of the world mind coming through my mind as a shadow, a temptation which I now reject. God is present. God is all. And there I rest with confidence.
We're going to pause right here to hear a word from our sponsor. Listeners, we'll be back with you in just a few moments. Kriya Yoga Asana class is a module fitting into the master plan, leading the practitioner to the experience of total consciousness by attuning the mind-body complex to the divine idea. A system of exercises designed to use the physical appearance to determine individual level of consciousness and degree of awareness. Starting with the process of lengthening and strengthening muscles to bring bones into the position of internal support. We educate thought up to spiritual apprehension, because when spirit is cause, it calls into expression the beauty of holiness, making creation perfect. Mountain pose may not bring you truth in consciousness, but truth in consciousness must bring mountain pose. Visit the website www.ipdtransform.com. Namaste. And welcome back. For those of you just joining us, you're listening to The Voice of Yoga, and we are talking consciousness. Swami, how about some takeaways from that Herb Fitch soundbite that we just listened to?
Yeah, from Realization of Oneness, Class 29A. And I have a little bit more here, a quote that I took from that. The moment you have something against which you're protecting yourself, you've denied the omnipresence of God. It shall not come nigh thee, if you live in the secret place of the Most High. And the secret place of the Most High is the consciousness of the presence of God. End of quote. In order to be a faithful witness to the divine omnipresence, we are going to have to be able to master the mind-body complex, which means we're going to be able to control the influence of the mortal mind on our thoughts. And the best way that we do this is by starting to have a relationship with the invisible, intangible, divine omnipresence. And like Jesus told us, we must be born again of spirit. We have to change the reward circuits of the brain, of the physical body, and replace the visible intangible and the invisible intangible particles and waves that we come in with, our default muscle memory, animal magnetism, however you want to represent or explain that, we must replace what it is we come in looking for to produce a feeling in the body that I'm happy, I'm okay, I'm special, I'm good enough. And it must be the invisible, intangible, divine omnipresence. If it's anything else, then it is what they call a sin. It misses the mark. It's not like God doesn't want us to have this some other way. There is no other way of doing it. But once you've internalized the divine principle as your symbol for validation, the panel's wired. Now you have the benefit of what is called internal support. You're no longer drawing off of the outside world, seeking, asking, pleading, trying, striving, or struggling. You are resting in an inexhaustible resource which will never let you down. And the peace that comes with this connection is the peace that passes understanding. We really don't know what confidence is until we know ourselves in the way that we're known by the Creator, which is spiritual. And when we are one with the divine principle, then we are out of the belief in mortality, in a temporary sense of life. And all that the Father has is thine. And surprisingly enough, you find there's no trying, striving, struggling, seeking, planning, or asking, because I want obscures I am. Thinking is what creates the veil, preventing us from knowing the truth that the divine creation is perfect, everywhere, always.
Swami, let's discuss watching and watching out. The difference that we had mentioned in the summary as the graduation from being double-minded to single-eyed.
Yeah, the idea of watching out starts with a belief in problems, the belief in two powers. We watch out and we are seeking protection. This is what we would call our normal approach to living. A normal human being seeks to improve himself, to protect himself. We are seeking more of the pleasures and profits of this human experience. But in athletics, in sports, offense is typically your best defense. The same is true in divine science. Being conscious of the divine principle, affirming the truth, is far better than denying there is something possible to go wrong. And so the difference between watching, which is resting in the knowledge the divine creative principle is the only self-existent power in this universe, and there is nothing out there to oppose it. You are watching for the dawning of the divine perfection without any concern or belief in anything different from that. Watching out is just the opposite. We are walking on eggs, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Why? Because we believe there is a force out there producing problems, sickness, suffering, disease, lack, limitation. And so we are driven by the fear that comes from the belief in mortality.
I see that Mary Baker wrote in Miscellany on page 232 and 233, a section that's entitled Watching versus Watching Out. Is there anything else we should capture from that?
Also, in that article, she makes reference to Science and Health with Key to the Scripture, page 252, 8 to 14, and I'll read it. A knowledge of error and of its operations must precede the understanding of truth which destroys error, until the entire mortal material error finally disappears, and the eternal verity, man created by and of spirit, is understood and recognized as the true likeness of his maker. End of quote. I also found that supported, or maybe this is where Joel Goldsmith actually got it, was his suggestion: to heal, we must know the nature of God, the nature of error, and the nature of prayer. This is all very good information for us to start to apply, because divine science, spirit is a demonstrable principle. It testifies with deeds, not words. There comes a point where you stop talking about this and you start demonstrating what Jesus was telling us to do. Heal the sick, reform sinner, raise the dead is not something unique to him, but is readily available for those of us who have eyes to see. So this idea of graduating from being double-minded and seeing with two eyes, now graduating to being spiritually or soul-minded and seeing with one eye, one being, one life, everywhere, always.
Swami, is there anything else that we should know about that Herb Fitch quote, "Heaven is earth without the mask of the senses"?
Yeah, when I remembered Herb's statement about the mask, I did a Google search asking the question, how does Mary Baker Eddy remove the mask? Because this is something that she talks about in Science and Health. And I have to say, I was surprised to find Google did a better job on answering the question than I ever expected. I've been working with Gilbert Carpenter's statement for some time now in 500 Watching Points, and I'll read it. Is it not error to cherish the notion that the ability to comprehend the deep things of God is a developed quality attained through study and application alone? True, such study and application are needed in order to know what it is that prevents students from expressing and voicing the mind, which was in Christ Jesus, a thing divinely and scientifically natural, to the one whose thought is freed from the influence of mortal mind. The student's higher task is to empty his thoughts so that the deep things of God may flow in. End of quote. This is something we work with consistently with the Kriya Yoga we teach. This idea of stopping thinking and making your mind an avenue of awareness for the presence of the divine mind. Resting in silence and stillness, watching, waiting, letting, listening for this illuminating of our thought, where divine mind acknowledges itself as you. And in the light of that spiritual recognition, God being all, omnipresent, there is no you. If God is all, who are you? Who am I? But an illusion, a reflection, a thought in the divine mind. And in this oneness is when we have now come out from under the government of this belief in two powers, under karmic law, material law. What we put out is what we get back. And now we are under the government of divine law, absolute goodness, eternal life, the changeless state of being perfect, everywhere, always.
That completes our show for today. Listeners, be sure to visit the website www.ipdtransform.com. On any of the pages, as you scroll down, you'll see several buttons there that you could press that would further your understanding. Swami, any final thoughts about today's show?
Well, I would like to encourage people to join the Kriya Yoga Spiritual Advance to get the light in your soul and experience true senseless optimism. Namaste.
Thank you for listening to the program, The Voice of Yoga. This is Lisa Winton, along with Swami Jayananda, signing off. Have a wonderful Kriya Yoga realization. Namaste.